Ado and Sheena Ringo. Can you imagine? Two bigger names. We're going to be checking out both of them today. We're going to be checking out both versions of Crime and Punishment as part of our track-by-track listen through to what has got to be one of the most interesting cover albums in so many ways. Because the funny thing is that so far, this as a cover album, it seems to be more about just letting Ado have fun rather than reinventing the songs, just hearing what songs sound like through such an influential voice of a generation. It's such like a stereotypical phrase, but it's one that I think we can safely use for Ado. But of course, Ado herself was partially inspired by a voice of a previous generation, Sheena Ringo. I know she's still going, but it's really because like Sheena Ringo is such a beloved, recognized, and pointed to star in Japanese music history. If you don't know her, which I'm assuming if you clicked on this video you probably do, but if you don't know her, she's just come up through solo. She was very famous solo. She had stuff with Tokyo Jihen, which was a very popular band in its own right, and she's had all kinds of other side projects as well. But she's very much pointed to as both performer, singer, songwriter, all of these things. Covered some of her work before on this channel as well. But here's the thing. They're doing Crime and Punishment, not the Dostoevsky book, but they're doing the song Crime and Punishment. I can't remember if I've heard this song before. It's really weird how there are these strange gaps in my knowledge when it comes to like music. Like there'll be songs that I'll know really well from, I've been kind of following music since, I keep on saying it's like about 1998, 1999. I was quite young when I first started listening to Japanese music. I've been like listening to Japanese music ever since then, but I think because I didn't grow up in Japan, there are like little things that I missed that you kind of pick up if you grow up in the country, you hear everything. It's around you. It's all the time. So there's a lot of stuff that I still miss. And I've listened to a lot of Tokyo Jihen and I've listened to quite a bit of Sheena Ringo as well, but I don't know if I've heard this song. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our usual thing where we do a reaction to both versions of the song. Now, what's come up through the last couple of times where I've done this is what order do I do it? Do I do the original first, then the Ado version, or the Ado version and the original? Now, the reason why I'm doing the Ado version first and then the original is because a lot of the songs that Ado likes to cover get copyright blocked, which means that when I react to them, I have to cut the reaction out. And as the whole point of reaction is to get the idea of my first impression of a song, well, if my first impression of the song has to be removed from the video, then yeah, that's a bit of a problem for us sharing the journey together. So I am going to check out the Ado version first of all, then I'm going to go back and check out the Sheena Ringo version, which may or may not get cut by copyright. Given my history with Tokyo Jihen and Sheena Ringo, it's possible this will get cut for copyright. I can see, by the way, that the song came out 12 years ago, which means it was also right in that period of time when everything was copyright blocked. But one of the interesting things I did notice is that Sheena Ringo's got 1.36 million subs, whereas Ado has, where is it? 9.1. That's incredible. Actually, which one has more views? The Ado version's got 26.5 million. 23 million. Okay, so slightly less for Sheena Ringo. And like I say, Sheena Ringo is a bit of a legend. And when is this song from? So was it just uploaded 12 years ago or was it from earlier? It was released in 2000. Okay, so the song itself is actually 26 years old. So that's probably why it's got less views on this version anyway, because it wouldn't have had the initial hype of coming out when the song came out. So okay, so that explains a little bit of that reason. But anyway, as I said, we're going to check out the Ado version, then we're going to go back, check out the Sheena Ringo version, compare them together. Hopefully we'll be able to watch them both together now. But let's start with the Ado version. This is Crime and Punishment, the Ado version. And as always, I'll give you my honest thoughts and let's see where we go with this. Oh, plus it's the only one that gets a music video on this album. Ooh, like that. Dirty organ sounds really cool. That 3 count beat is very Sheena Ringo. Ooh, that's nice. Switching to the brighter major chords. loving the mix between like the pick guitar and the distorted strum. That's a lovely transition there between the verse and the chorus. This is so perfect for Ado's voice. Total opposite of the last song. That's so much more. You get the feeling that she's able to like push the expression up through this so nicely. Of course, it's the DJ. The bass line of this is beautiful too. This is, yeah, I feel so differently about this one than the last one. A little bit of fry at the end. Oh, please. I could listen to this for hours. All those sort of beautifully crisp, distorted sounds there. Alright, do you know what? I'm happy on so many levels. Apart from the fact that, as far as I'm concerned, I'm interested to hear the original version now. Because for me, this fits Ado's voice so perfectly. I can see why this one got a music video. I can see why this one got a lot of hype, because yeah, this is a song that, although it obviously wasn't written for her, it feels like it could have been written for her. The interesting thing is, of course, I mean, Ado's pointed out her inspiration from Sheena Ringo before. And it does kind of show there's a similar in that kind of very big, theatrical, slightly gritty, jazzy voice that they both do in very different ways. But, you know, there's a similar kind of feeling of purpose and attitude to what they actually deliver. So when I listen to this, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I'm not going to be surprised if I'm going to love the Sheena Ringo version, well, the original version as well. But this really hits hard. This is great. From a musical standpoint, it's a very simple beast, but very effective. You know, you start with that sort of distorted organ. I love the way that comes in, because you notice that we start off with that distorted organ, just like, and then the minute Ado's voice comes in a few seconds later, even though it's like she's singing a slightly dissonant note from the keyboard, it's just the feeling that immediately the keyboard's already set up this slightly suspicious, uncomfortable, dirty feeling. And so the minute the voice comes in, there's so much atmosphere already in play. And then it feels like a few seconds in, the song just has to sort of drop in that really lovely swinging 1 2 3 1 2 3 kind of beat, and then from there all it has to do is just kind of keep that vibe going. It's not really a song that does a huge amount of developing and changing. There are little things, little key changes and stuff in there that do help, but as a general, it's a song that just kind of keeps this beautiful sort of swinging feeling going. You know, you've got the two guitars, you've got one which is like strumming up and then going octave and down, octave and down. You've got another one which is finger picking, you've got that sort of distorted organs continuing, and underneath it the bass is just kind of soberly boom, 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 just walking around, just giving a little bit underneath. I love that kind of feeling that everything's both very much under control, kind of gentle swinging old time kind of beat, whilst at the same time kind of gritty and distorted. And you put that together and you definitely get that kind of smoky jazz club vibe that I know is kind of a quintessential Sheena Ringo kind of thing to go for. Yeah, in a way it is true, isn't it? Sort of like the dirty distorted sounds with the classy swinging sounds. What could be a better auditory of the ears of sound representation for a smoky jazz club? So yeah, this was amazing, but of course we have to check out the original. Now I am hoping that when I press play we can enjoy this together, but there is a possibility that it will get copyright blocked and you'll just hear me skip straight over to the end and talk about what I thought about it. But let's enjoy it together, hopefully. If not, you'll skip straight to the review. This is Sheena Ringo's, I'm not going to say version, it's her original, and let me just get the title right. It's Tsumi Tobatsu. Tsumi Tobatsu. Crime and Punishment. All right, let's go. So 2000. God, it even says Vivo in the corner. Sheena Ringo. Tsumi Tobatsu. A lot of rolled R's. Very kind of aggressive sound. The recording's got a much more kind of analog feel to it. That snare sound. Oh, poor man. It's a cool shot and yet such a tragic shot at the same time. I'm gonna be honest. So this is Sheena Ringo wrote. I've actually made it. And definitely this original just screams kind of. It's got that smoky jazzy vibe, but it's kind of got that old school grim as well in the way it's recorded. I like the clarity on the bass here. It's much louder and thicker in this version. I like how 90% of the video is just a chopped up Mercedes. Like, we spent a lot of money doing this. I really like the mix in this version, like the organ's much louder, everything just feels much more present. This is an interesting comparison. The whistling is not in the new version, is it? The whistling's awesome. Why is the whistling not in the new version? Can Ado not whistle? I can't whistle, don't worry. Credits. Can you imagine if they filmed this scene and then, like, you know, then they cut the car in half and then they realized that they hadn't filmed it properly and they had to go back and, like, cut the car in half again. Oh, put it back together again. So, alright, we cut the car in half, like, let's film the performance scenes. Ah, damn it. We forgot to film that bit where she drives down the road. Right, put it back together again. Or would you just buy a new Mercedes? Okay, so my feelings on this, actually, I feel like there's several things I want to say, but I do actually feel quite clearly about this. Now, so I think there's 3 levels at which to look at this. Vocal performance, the way it's recorded, and the way it's written. From the recording standpoint, that's the easiest one to point out. I've got to be honest, I think that the Ado version, once again, much clearer, but I got to say, once again, I think I prefer the way the original is recorded. A little bit like when we had the one at the beginning of the album, the Dried Flowers cover, the Yuri cover. I think the Ado one I preferred, but it still was pretty clear that the Yuri version sounded a little bit more organic. You know, the drums felt more like drums. Everything felt a little bit more like you were in the room with it, which is not always better, but just kind of worked for that kind of song, and especially for songs that are a little bit soulful. In that case, I still preferred the Ado recording. In this version, I've got to be honest, I think the version on the Sheena Ringo recording, quarter of a century old as it may be, just sounds so much better. Because the song is, by its very nature, like I say, it's got that dirty, old school, sort of distorted, slightly analog feeling to it. And I feel that as much as if I hadn't heard the original, I would just be like, the Ado, like, recording sounds great. But now I've heard the original, I'm just thinking, it sounds so good with that slightly distorted feeling. You know, yeah, the electric organ feels louder, the other guitar feels a little bit more sort of gritty, and then, you know, the bass, when we get into that bridge, the bass just feels big and round, and it's kind of got it's got body to it. And the drums, especially the snare sound of this, I mean, the snare sound was good in both versions, but the snare sound really has that sort of nice, big, sort of tinny sort of clang to it that really gives you that gritty feel. So I've got to be honest, from an instrumental standpoint, Sheena Ringo version comes off better. From a vocal standpoint, and this is where it's going to be contentious, but believe me, you'll understand why I'm going to say this in a minute. I much preferred the Ado version. I think the reason being is that as much as I like Sheena Ringo's voice, maybe because this is earlier in her career as well, there's the little bit where I feel like, so she doesn't quite have the same vocal power that Ado has, and there's little bits where I know she intentionally does that little squeak sound, which, interestingly enough, Iron at the End, I think Iron at the End was very much inspired by Sheena Ringo to do that as well. So Iron at the End had a few songs. Luckily, she's toned it down now a bit as well, but she used to have a lot of songs where she do that, like, I can't really properly replicate the squeak sound, like at the end of notes. I'm not a big fan of that, I'll be honest with you. So kind of like Ado kind of didn't do that, but just instead went for just kind of emotional raw delivery. So the interesting thing is that I kind of preferred the instruments from the Sheena Ringo version, the vocal from the Ado version. But if I'm honest with you, this is actually why this works so well. Is because Ado's version, therefore, probably is the one that I would be most inclined to listen to again. But it's a song that is perfect for Ado that could only have been written by Sheena Ringo. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, I do kind of prefer the Ado version, but this is one of those songs where Ado couldn't have. Yeah, I know Ado works with a lot of songwriters, but you needed a Sheena Ringo to write this. So it's kind of cool. And I actually really like that. I was thinking that when I was listening to the Sheena Ringo version, I was just thinking to myself, isn't it kind of cool that even though I prefer the cover in the final analysis, the cover is something that needed the original to exist. And I know that sounds like an absurdly obvious thing to say, but I'm just saying that it could never have just been its own original thing anyway. It always needed to be a cover. There always needed to be a Sheena Ringo for there to be a Crime and Punishment. For there to be the perfect song for Ado, there needed to be a perfect Sheena Ringo beforehand. Yeah, I thought this was really enjoyable. I certainly, as well, I've got to be honest, I'll just tell you at the tail end of this video, I was worried going into this because after how I felt about the last song, and by the way, at the time of recording this, I haven't published the video for the song before this yet. And I'm intrigued. I don't know how much backlash I'm going to get for that, for basically saying I didn't really like the Ado version. Well, I just, it didn't work for me. In a way, I'm kind of glad because I've got to be honest on this channel. And so when it came up and it was like Sheena Ringo, I was like, I trust Sheena Ringo. Sheena Ringo is like a legendary songwriter. She's an amazingly talented artist. I was like, please, God, don't let this be. If this turns out to be something I don't like and then I've got to come off the back of that and then criticize Sheena Ringo and Ado, I'm going to be, life's not going to be worth living. But yeah, I'm genuinely, so I'm both happy because I really enjoy this song and I'm happy as well for the fact that this is something where I genuinely feel like this is the way a cover should be. Well, if you're going to do a vocal cover, if you're not reinventing the song, but you're just like reinvigorating it with a new singer, yeah, a singer of this generation or whatever you want to call it, I think this is the way to do it. I think it's great. I really think it works. And yeah, again, I think both artists needed to be there for something like this to happen. You needed a Sheena Ringo to write it, and you need an Ado to make it just a little bit better, a little bit more perfect. Anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts as always. I'm sure people are going to disagree with some things I say, but that's what I love about doing this channel. I don't just take the easy way out. I will tell you exactly what I think and I'll tackle these difficult subjects. Nah, this was fun. This was really fun. I enjoyed this. And plus, as I say, yeah, that sort of swing 3-count rhythm along with some like distorted keyboards and all that kind of thing. Yeah, you're going to have me on board from day one. So great stuff. Anyway, get in the comments. Tell me what you think. And until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these. For now, ciao, ciao.